Hello and welcome back to Tallboy Radio. Today we're on episode 67, Sporting Heroes. Before we talk about what we're going to talk about, we'll do the introduction. So, Gaz, do you want to go first?
Hi guys, looking forward to this again. Love me sport. Those people that know me, I could talk about sport forever, pretty much. So I'm really looking forward to this. Interested to see who the other two guys talk about. Tonight I'm drinking a pretty standard sort of Birra Moretti. Love a bit of Birra Moretti, and just in case that one runs out, I've then got a sort of a San Miguel as well. Out of, as always with myself, a TBR podcast piece of merch.
Full to the brim, that is.
Full to the brim, absolutely. So yeah, looking forward to this and see when it goes.
Cool, lad.
Nice one. Well, I have, like I said, when I visited Eam, I picked up many beers from their brewery, and I've not had one for a while, so I'm back on the Eam Brewery trail. And this week it is one called Black Death. If that doesn't sound enticing, I don't know what does. And it is a Imperial Stout. Well,
I was going to say it has to be a stout, surely, with a name like that.
Absolutely, yeah, 7%, and it's a vanilla one. I have to say the vanilla isn't too strong, but it's actually a pretty decent stout. Actually, it's really tasty. It doesn't feel like a 7%er. But I just want to chuck in a quick apology before we go on, because my sound quality over the last couple of weeks hasn't been great. As we discovered last week, the microphone wasn't actually connected. I was using the one that's built into my headphones, and we discovered that in a rather unusual fashion, didn't we? If you've ever seen Naked Gun, the bit where Frank Drebin's in the, giving the press conference about the Queen coming to visit, you'll know what we're talking about.
Yeah, and if you don't, basically, Adam went for a piss.
Classic beans.
Yeah,
classic beans.
Shared with everybody.
Andy, go then. What are you drinking, pal?
You'll be surprised about this. I'm on Stella.
Wow.
So basically, I bought a load in over Christmas for Mrs. Stepdad coming over. So I thought, we'll smash these. Didn't drink any. And then I thought, well, one of our neighbours helped to take this our old TV aerial down. So I was like, yes, let's get a few Stellas in the fridge and I'll give them all these Stellas. Didn't want any, did he? I think we had like a Stella over the fence together, and that was it. And I was like, fucking hell, so I've got to drink this crap now. And don't get me wrong, I love Stella off the tap. It's all right, but
yeah,
it's not so good out of the bottle. Now it's 4 months old as well.
It's weird because like Stella and Peroni, I don't mind them, but bottles I'm not a massive fan. I'll drink them draft and stuff, but I'm not a massive fan of the bottles, I have to admit. So
yeah, must be the temperature and fizziness.
Yeah,
because these are not too good. So we'll move on from that. So today's episode, Sporting Heroes. So we've each got 3, and we'll briefly talk about each one. What I would thinking then, maybe we just talk about any special mentions of people that aren't on the list. But so we'll go backwards.
Okay.
So I've got 4 people that were quite close to being on the list. And I thought, no, I can't. I'll stick these other ones on there. So I don't know if you guys have got any people like that as well.
I've got a notable. I those people that know me, obviously they know that I've played sport for years. Still play a lot of golf. So Tiger Woods for me, he wasn't a hero of mine when I was growing up because he wasn't around, obviously. However, the influence that he's had on my sport is phenomenal, really. So he would be one that would get like effectively an honourable mention. And I think if I'd have been a little bit younger and I started playing golf, there's only really one person you can look at in terms of being a hero, and that's Tiger Woods. And I know he's had some troubles and stuff in his life, but you look at all the sorts of, I say sporting geniuses, you look at Alex Higgins, you can look at John McEnroe, you can look at, lots of sort of Ronnie O'Sullivan, you've got those magicians, George Best, people like that, so everybody has their own demon and stuff. But Tiger Woods, I think, for me, gets an honourable mention without a shadow of a doubt.
I think it was inevitable for him to have some demons in it, playing golf since being 4 years old and thrust into the limelight quite a young age.
And I think that's it. You're thrust into the limelight. You're away from your family. You're on the road for God knows how many weeks of the year. You know, you've got all that fame, all that adulation. You've got all your fake friends, false friends that are saying, "Oh, Tiger, sign this, Tiger, sign that." You know, endorse this, endorse that, and sponsor this and all that. So I think it's inevitable you get some sort of demons along the way. But what he did, and he basically changed golf. He changed the way golf was being played. And, you know, for somebody who plays the game, he was a genius and still is. Arguably greatest of all time. Jack Nicklaus might have something to say about that. But, so he gets an honourable mention, but he's not one of mine on the list. So,
not being a golf person, I mean, I must admit, I think he sort of modernised the game, didn't he? Because it's more in the news, well, maybe more on social media.
Yeah, no, absolutely. No, 100%, Andy. He brought effective golf sort of to the masses, and he changed the way that it was played. He was one of the first guys to get into the gym. He bulked up. He became an athlete as opposed to back in the 70s sort of thing, 80s. You got guys that perhaps weren't in the best shape, and Tiger Woods was one of the first guys that actually introduced, you know what, I'm an athlete, so therefore if I can sort my body out and get my body pretty ripped, and I can increase how far I hit it, I can do things that other players can't. And he revolutionised. Now the likes of McIlroy and Dustin Johnson, all the top guys at the moment, you know, they effectively model what they do on him. So, you know, yeah, brilliant, massive influence on the sport that I obviously play a lot of now. So he definitely is an, if there was going to be a number one honourable mention, it would have been him. So
nice. I can see you're ready with one lined up, Ad.
No, I have no actually. There was a couple that I could have put in, but I'll mention those because anybody who knows me knows there's two teams I support. So there was a couple of options from those teams, and I'll mention those when we talk about the different players as to why I put that one ahead of the other, and I'll let you dispute me and tell me why I'm wrong. A couple of ones that I mentioned, actually, I thought of literally just off the hop there. You know, I'm a big darts fan, so the likes of MVG and Phil Taylor. Phil Taylor is literally won everything and almost a perfectionist. When you watch him, when he had the mick on him, you know, somebody had him against the ropes, you know, he could up his game and take that average a little bit higher. And MVG, just for the same sort of thing, that perfection. And the only other one growing up that I can think of, Mike Tyson. Watching Mike Tyson box, for me, I used to enjoy boxing back in the day, and he was one of those boxers that I just loved to watch because you just felt he was never going to be beaten. Obviously, we know subsequently he did, and he, again, when you talk about Tiger Woods' demons, he's someone else. Yeah, absolutely. He had his demons, didn't he?
I remember, you see, Tyson doesn't get on my list, but is somebody who, and pre pay-per-view times, you know, he would be always somebody that you'd be like, I want to watch that fight. Basically because you'd think, I wonder how long it'll take for Tyson to destroy this bloke. You know, is he going to last the first round type thing? But, you know, he absolutely was somebody who you wanted to watch. And I remember the sort of the backlash when he got beat. Was it Buster Douglas? James Buster Douglas beat him, and it was like, oh my God, the fight must have been fixed. How much money has been put on it, and and you were like, jeepers. I actually think about, you know, Lennox Lewis again was pretty underrated. I mean, I think he was undisputed heavyweight champion at one point. He's massively underrated.
Decent boxer.
Yeah. Right. So he obviously doesn't get on my list, but he would be one that, growing up again, you'd always watch it and stuff. So
if you jump on YouTube though and you watch like Tyson's best knockouts, it's ridiculous. You know, that guy really dealt out some pain. I briefly got to see him on my 40th birthday. Sat there in Vegas, in the Miracle Mile shops. We were eating lunch, and Kim just casually says, "Oh, look, there's that boxer with a tattoo on his face," and you're like, yeah, whatever. And all of a sudden it's like, holy shit, Mike Tyson stood about 10 feet in front of me. I tripped over a chair trying to get to him. By the time I was around there, his minder had taken him away because he'd been spotted. He was at a sunglasses stand, and obviously there was a swarm of us, probably more concerned by my clumsiness, to be fair, more than anything else.
Mike Tyson's walking past, and everyone's like, look at that clumsy falling over. Tyson just literally sidling away off the side.
That's it, yeah. I was his last knockdown.
The phantom punch that knocked Adam over, you know what I mean, just so he could get away. Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
Tyson was a bit before my time, but on YouTube there is a mini documentary some guy's done, and it shows like all his fights through the years, and his movement is just it's so fast and like powerful, like it's unbelievable. But
his punches were ridiculous. I don't think there's been a better puncher, a stronger puncher in the history of boxing than him. It was incredible.
I remember the infamous, obviously, biting of Evander Holyfield's ear, and I remember watching that, and I sort of remember thinking, like, what's he done? Like seriously, like, and was that, you know, was that a throwback to his bad old days when he was brawling on the streets of Brooklyn or wherever it was? You know, you think, is that what he would resort to if he knew he was effectively, I say, going to lose the fight? But he'd sort of thrown quite a bit at Holyfield, and I'm not saying he wasn't getting anywhere, but I think was possibly losing the fight. And I think maybe that's gone through his mind. He's like, right, what can I do to even the odds? I know, I'll bite off his ear off. You know what I mean? It's just one of those real feral, instinctive, sort of really back in the day, that sort of survival mode instinct to just literally just do what you can to get one over the guy you're fighting, effectively. You know, that real primeval sort of thing. So, and I remember that, and literally I remember him sort of effectively spitting out the bit of the ear, and then I remember that afterwards there was a still photo of like the canvas floor, like part of Holyfield's ears on the floor. Just like, really?
It was no small bit of ear, was it?
No, it was awful. But yeah, you look at a montage of his knockouts, you're like, oh, holy crap. Sort of thing. But even now you look at him, and I don't know how old he is, was he 55, 60, or however old he is now, he can still move, that guy. He can proper still move, I'm telling you.
You got out the Miracle Mile shops pretty quick, I'll tell you that for free.
Didn't want any piece of that 6'5" lump, did he? You know what I mean?
He did not. So it was Butterbean coming at him.
There's one person on my list I was really told not to put on was Michael Jordan. Yeah. And obviously he's like world renowned and revolutionised trainer.
List, dude.
I thought he might be on your list as well. And again, he's one that I was, you know, growing up, I was a massive American sports fan, still am really. But back in the day, you know, Chicago has always been my American city, and, you know, it's my kind of town. And he was one that, again, I was probably a little bit too old for him to be like a real hero of mine, but he falls into that Tiger Woods category in terms of, like, I was a massive Bulls fan. And to watch him and Scottie Pippen, and then, you know, B.J. Armstrong and Tony Kukoc, and that sort of era of that, and you just think, wow, like Dennis Rodman obviously came on, was it for the three-peat or whatever, and you just thought, like, again, the influence that he had. I'm pretty sure that he was the first. Was he the first $1 billion sportsman in terms of the amount that he added to an economy? I'm sure they said that because of his Nike Air stuff, he added $1 billion to the American market or something or other. I vaguely remember reading that somewhere. But yeah, I'm surprised he's not on your list, if I'm honest, Andy.
I've gone for a younger player. It's a bit more because Jordan was more 80s, sort of 90s.
I reckon I might know you've gone for them, but I'll leave that for you, obviously.
I think you'll be surprised.
Oh, really? Oh, okay. Yeah.
I read an autobiography about it was Rudy Tomjanovic, actually, another basketball player, and I forget who he went on to manage, but he turned down signing Michael Jordan because Michael Jordan lied about his height. Jordan had claimed he was 6'7", but he wasn't. He was 6'4", and it's something I was amazed when I stood next to his. I went to a Madame Tussauds in America, and I stood next to his wax dummy, and I was taller than it. It was like, oh, they've got this one wrong. I can't have been taller than Jordan. That's ridiculous. Don't get me wrong. I'm pretty sure he could jump higher than me. That goes without saying. But yeah, that I find that crazy that I was taller than the guy. I'm not questioning his basketball there. I'm not going to say I'm better than him. You know, that'd be.
Thing is, though, again, I've said the NBA. You know, even the small guys are tall, aren't they? You know, you've only got, is it Muggsy Bogues, whatever his name is, at 5'5" or however tall he was, or, you know, other than that, you know, even the small guys, the point guards are like 6'1", 6'2", and you're like, oh, okay, fair enough, sort of thing. But yeah, I'm I reckon I might. Well, I might know who you've gone for, Andy. That might be a bit of a shot. I'm trying to. There's a couple of names that spring to mind, but obviously we'll leave that till we get there. Look, going back to what Adam mentioned earlier, obviously people know I'm an Everton fan. If you said I'm wearing the top, the 80s side, and I could probably go through it, but I won't, and I won't bore you with it. But the 80s, the 80s side was class, and actually, possibly the sort of the Heysel thing had a massive impact on Everton, just in terms of we got back. I say English clubs got banned from Europe, didn't they? And we were reigning Div 1 champions. I think we would have won the FA Cup or got to final that year, and we would have been in Europe for a number of years, And obviously the Heysel thing happened, and English clubs got banned, and that sort of robbed us a little bit of I'm not saying European legacy as such, but it just when the money was coming into the sport, none of the English clubs could stop playing it. But that 80s side of Mountfield, Ratcliffe, Stevens, Reed, Bracewell, Sharp, Lineker for a season before he went to Barca, Neville, Big Nev in goal, just Kevin Sheedy on the left, who had a wonderful left foot, magician on the left side. So they would all get an honourable mention for me, because obviously I love Everton, and they were the team that I grew up watching. So they would all get 1 to 11. They would all get honourable mentions into the heroes for me. But obviously I can't mention a team. So, but yeah, those for me were, if I had to pick one, probably Peter Reid in the middle of midfield, proper tiger, sort of just epitomised just like what Everton were all about, really. So, but yeah, that team was mint, and I'm pretty sure that Ad's going to mention a few from a team that he likes as well. So I'm going to put the whole team for me, but they don't make my list, obviously, because it's a team and not an individual. So
good job we're going for 3 people then. Yeah, a long episode.
It would be, yeah. Could be another Kevin Spacey special.
Okay, so number 1, Neville Southall. Number 2, Gary Stevens, etc., etc., etc. I literally could go through them all, sort of thing, but I won't. So,
cool. So I suppose now we've done the teasing out of the way. Should we go from number 1 on our list? I don't know. I've not really ordered mine. I've just gone 1, 2, 3. But yeah, I'll let Gaz go first. If you want to choose one of your sporting heroes.
Right, so I'm going to go... I'll go reverse order. And I'm going to mention number 4, number 3, because it literally could be take your pick. And ironically, Adam mentioned he doesn't have many table tennis players. And growing up, I played like table tennis like 5 times a week, 6 times a week. I would play Monday night local league, I'd train on a Tuesday. Wednesday night I played Potter's League. Thursday night I'd have training. Weekends I'd be off at competition somewhere. Did okay, got nationally ranked and stuff, and that was probably my main sport, really. So there's a guy called Desmond Douglas he was an England international. He was top player. I don't think he got to world number 1, but he certainly got into top 10. He was left-handed, I'm left-handed. Loved everything about him. Quick counter-attacking player, fantastically gifted, talented player. So him growing up, I idolised him. I tried to base my game on what he did. He was obviously...
Did he beat Forrest Gump?
Whether he beat... To be fair, I'm not sure Desmond Douglas has met the president of again. But yeah, maybe not. And he's definitely toured China and wherever Desmond Douglas has over a number of years. But yeah, him growing up was... I played, I'll tell you probably from school days, I played a lot of table tennis back in the day, a lot. That's probably where my back problems come from now. But and he was, he was England number 1 for years and sort of carried the flag, really. So he was number 4, and number 3, and Adam will know where I'm going with this, and I'll just give you his nickname, was Sweetness. Was sort of Walter Payton, because effectively... I started watching NFL and I was like, who's this guy? Like I started watching it, and really before I started supporting the Bears, I remember watching a game and I saw him and I was like, oh, who's he play? And I saw him and I thought, who's that guy? Who does he play for? And he played for the Bears. And I was like, right, that's why I'm going to support them. Do you know what I mean? And Sweetness was just brilliant. Held and loads of NFL records, number of rushing yards and all of that. Actually threw for 8 touchdowns, which I didn't realise. So him, Walter Payton for me. And I remember a quote Mike Ditka said. He said he's the greatest player he's ever seen, but also the greatest person he's ever worked with. And that talks a lot about what he was like as a person. I know they do the Walter Payton Foundation, and they do the Walter Payton sort of Unsung Hero Award, and they do lots of community stuff, and it's named after him because of the work that he did. So he was my number 3. It was a toss-up between Desmond Douglas and Walter Payton, but probably Walter Payton, just because I was just getting into that NFL, watching the American sports sort of thing, and he was obviously the main guy from the team that I support. So yeah, so he was my number 3.
I've got to say, to be honest with you, the first chap I've never heard of. But I will say this on Gaz's table tennis. I can remember him showing me a table tennis magazine, which was available nationally. And Gaz's name was printed in there. He was in the top 100 in the UK. So you got total respect to you on that one, dude. And not only that,
I did it. I did okay. And I played some county juniors and county seniors and stuff, and did okay. Got sort of pretty nationally ranked and stuff. And that was my main sport, really, my main winter sport.
Yeah.
Played a lot of cricket during the summer, then pretty much table tennis during the winter, really. But did, like I say, played local leagues sort of a couple of nights a week. Played sort of Potteries League, which back in the day was a real good standard. I don't know what it's like now, but real good standard. We had guys ranked. Well, actually, we had a guy called Steve Slater who was ranked, I think, top 10, top 20 in the country, and he played local leagues and stuff. We got loads of guys representing county and stuff. So, real good standard. And I played that for years. That was my sport. So
you also featured in the All Sages school book as well, and about the sporting achievements there. Your photograph, we shared it on this podcast.
I did manage to squeak into the All Sages.
And Sid.
Yeah, absolutely. Desmond Douglas was a hero of mine when I was growing up, but just didn't quite get there, if you know what I mean. But Sweetness was just Sweetness is just brilliant.
I think if I were to include a Chicago Bears player in this list, it would have to be Walter Payton, because just a ridiculous talent. And it was a different time back then. Nowadays, when you see him diving over the scrimmage line into the touchdown, he scores touchdowns. It was ridiculous. You know what I mean? He was ridiculous. He
just oozed class. Literally just oozed class. And for the NFL lovers amongst us, even Tiddy and Shiner, obviously one's a cheesehead, so even the cheesehead would have to admit that Sweetness was pretty class. But yes, he was my number 3. So I don't want to ruin and go 2 and 1, because I'll let somebody else talk about their perhaps number 3 or whatever, and I'll leave my 2 and 1 till a little bit. So yeah, crack on, boys.
But Ad, have you got Gaz's number 3?
I haven't got Gaz's number 3, no, I haven't, shockingly enough. But the player I picked, and I haven't done him any particular order, to be honest, they're just 3 sporting guys who I totally respect. So I'm going to pick, I'll give you a guy who played for the Arsenal. So we're talking about football or soccer, if you're listening in the US. And it was a gentleman I've mentioned a few times on the podcast by the name of Thierry Henry. And for me, it was a tough choice as to whether to put him in, because there's another striker who played for Arsenal by the name of Ian Wright, who I absolutely love. But I put Henry in just a little bit ahead of him, even though that Wright absolutely personifies passion, and his love for the Arsenal is unquestionable, and his love for the English game is unquestionable. I just enjoyed watching him that little bit more. Go on, guys, I'll let you jump in.
I just obviously Wright came slightly before Henry, so I knew you were going to go Arsenal, obviously, so I sort of wondered whether or not you might put him in, because he got you watching Arsenal, and then Henry came along, you were like, wow, or was it? I sort of watched Arsenal a bit, and Wright was mint, but then Henry came along, and wow, if you know what I mean. Who was the one that sort of got you watching Arsenal and enthused about them?
No, it was Ian Wright, and I loved Ian Wright, and I still love Ian Wright now. But watching Henry, and I still believe he is the best striker to play in that league. I don't think there's been a better striker to you listen to Jamie Carragher recently said he's the best.
Shout, that is.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, and if you disagree with me, by all means, at me on Twitter or wherever. I won't read it. I won't unless it's you saying, "Damn it, dude, yeah, you're right. He was awesome." But Henry, for me, and actually, when you look at it, who had the better goals per game ratio out of Righty and Henry? Who was it?
I'll probably get it right.
It was right. It was it was a goal every 1.55 games, where it was Henry, it was 1.649.
Yeah.
But Henry holds the records. He played a little bit longer.
Yeah.
But he had the record, 228 goals for Arsenal, 175 league goals. He holds our record for the most goals scored in Europe, 42. 35 Champions League goals is the most scored. And has been named, by many as the greatest striker to play in the league.
I think the difference between, from a non-Arsenal fan, the difference between Wright and Henry was that Wright was a goal scorer. That's what he did. Came alive in the box. That sort of fox in the box, that poacher, that Gary Lineker type player, if you know what I mean. He wouldn't score many absolute belters from 20, 25 yards or whatever. He literally was a goal poacher. Whereas Henry, he's probably got more to his game than Ian Wright. If you know what I mean, he influenced the game in more ways. He could do more things than Ian Wright. And I'm not dissing Ian Wright. I love Ian Wright. Absolutely love Ian Wright. Love his passion, love his enthusiasm for the game. But Henry just offered so much more. And him and Bergkamp were just outrageous. Absolutely outrageous, both of them.
Well, Bergkamp's another one I toyed with including, to be honest, because he was just phenomenal. And again, didn't score as many goals as the two of them, certainly not per game, but the amount he created and the chances he created, just ridiculous. And being an Arsenal fan, that was our golden era. That was our golden era we hark back to.
Yeah, no, yeah, and it doesn't surprise me. You put him in. You talk about football and you can't not put him in. As an Arsenal fan, you just can't not put him in. It's a bit like me, not mentioning an Everton guy from the 80s. That was your era, that was your team,
100%,
Invincibles and all of that sort of thing. It was like.
Well, not only the Invincibles, he was a World Cup winner. He won the Euros, and he went on to win the Champions League with Barcelona.
Yeah,
fantastic player.
Yeah, class.
Have you seen the Gary Neville? I can't remember what it's called. Is it? It's not soccer box. I can't remember what it's called. But he gets different footballers on each week. He's Eddie.
Yeah, it might be soccer box, dude. It might be called that. Yeah. Box. Yeah.
And the Thierry Henry one was quite interesting because he's quite an intelligent person as well. So he says in a split second, he'd be like, "Well, the keeper's here. There's a defender there. I'm gonna have to curl it round," and it's all like that. Sort of that's he's processed it and stuff.
Yeah.
Really, really clever player. Yeah. I think if he was playing now, he'd be 30, 40 goals a season.
Yeah.
He would. Yeah, he would. And like you say, that's the thing. Back in the day when defenders were defenders, it still scored the amount of goals that he scored. It was ridiculous. And like you say, his placement and his mind, he was so many steps ahead of the game. It's just phenomenal to watch. Don't get me wrong, he had those games, which he didn't, to be fair. He had those games where he really could not be arsed and he just did not feel like playing. But then he had games when he was absolutely unstoppable. And I can remember a game that he played away at Portsmouth where literally the whole of I forget how many goals he scored. He might have scored 4 goals that day. And the whole of the Portsmouth end was just chanting his name. Because they knew they were watching a world-class talent. We just smashed them, 5-6-1. Henry had totally destroyed him, and the away fans were.
But it was weird though, because Wenger bought him. Wenger bought him, but didn't he buy him as a left winger or something? I'm sure he bought him as was it a winger, or he didn't buy him as an out-and-out striker, did he, or something?
He was played as a winger then, Wenger brought him in and said, you are going to play up front, and he wasn't convinced he did. It took 7 games till he scored his first goal for Arsenal, which, interestingly enough, it took 7 games before Bergkamp scored his first goal for Arsenal as well. But that was the thing about Wenger. He saw the talent, he knew the player. It was the same year. We look at the likes of Nicolas Anelka, he bought for, what, £250,000?
£500,000, sold him for 20 million or whatever it was, or
30
30 million or whatever it was back in the day.
32 million he sold him for.
Yeah.
And that was the thing with Wenger. He recognised what the player could do. Not so much in the defence, but going forward, he knew what the players could do.
No, absolutely.
He knew what Henry, and the idea was Henry and Alka playing together. That's what he wanted. Unfortunately, and Alka was he didn't want to play those games. Yeah, Le Sulk indeed. So imagine that those two guys playing together. That would have been phenomenal.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, no, brilliant. Go on then, Andy. Go on, give us one of yours then.
To keep it football related, then I put Paul Scholes. Now, I did have Beckham and Keane on my list, but I just thought Paul Scholes for me was just I don't know, more tuned to me being ginger.
Paul Scholes is class. Like,
it's interesting. I just like it. I like him mostly just for there's just no nonsense. He turned up, trained, played the game, but he's never in the news for like sleeping with old age pensioners or like asking for more money and all this like rubbish. He's just like loved football and he loved the club, and it's like that's. Well, Roy Keane was exactly the same as well, but I mean, like, Paul Scholes, he scores goals, but obviously not as prolific.
Because you look at that golden era of the England team, and you look at a photo and think like of the lineup and mid-90s, whatever it was, and you think, how did we not win something with that side? Like, seriously. So you got a different podcast, but just off the top of my head, maybe you've got like Ashley Cole left back, you've got like Sol Campbell, Tony Adams centre half, Gary Neville right back, you've got like Beckham, Gerrard, Scholes, and then
Lampard,
Joe Cole, Rooney, Owen, and you're just like how do we not win anything with that? Do you know what I mean?
Emil Heskey, don't forget.
That's why we didn't win it.
Yeah, sorry, Emil, if you're listening.
Well, they kept playing Scholes on the wing, and it's like
he played on the left, didn't he? Yeah.
And I think if he was like a deep line playmaker, then you have the other two can run around and do what they do.
Yeah. But he wasn't, because I think he was one of the last box-to-box midfielders, because you don't get them now. You're either a defensive midfielder or an attacking midfielder, and he was, back in the day, he could do both. And I actually think he was probably better than Gerrard and Lampard, but they seem to put Gerrard and Lampard in the middle, and that age-old conundrum of can Gerrard and Lampard play together? Well, actually, you should have fudged one of them off and put Scholes in the middle, because he was mint, that guy. Like, genuinely. And I don't know whether you know this, Andy, that one of the Italian owners, and it must have been mid to late 90s, and it was like, I can't for life remember whether it's like Juventus or AC Milan or Inter Milan or whatever it was. And he said one of his biggest regrets in his footballing career is not signing Paul Scholes. And this was back in the days like Inter Milan or AC Milan, or who were like giants of Europe. And he literally said like Paul Scholes was like the best. And when you talk about Andrea Pirlo, people like that, they who have played against, and who's the best midfielder who played against? Paul Scholes, Paul Scholes, Paul Scholes. And that just talks volumes about what he was like as a player. He was just phenomenal.
Wasn't the same manager turn around saying, how much would it take for me to buy you to bring you here? And he turned around saying, you got to buy United or something like that.
Yeah, probably was. Yeah. What would it cost me like to buy United or something? Yeah, it's probably the same guy. But he said it was like one of his biggest regrets was not effectively not signing him, and that just shows you the respect he had in the game effectively. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, absolutely, that's a great shot, Andy, because he was minty. And again, he's not. I'm a bit older than you, so he wouldn't be somebody that I would look at growing up. But he's somebody that when I was, so we was around mid-90s, so I'd been like 20 or whatever, So he was around when I loved football, and I loved that Invincibles versus the United. That era of those two going at it was just class. But yeah, good shout that is, kid. That Scholes is decent. Very.
Back round to you now as well, isn't it?
Yeah, so I'll go number 2 then. I'll go I'll go Ian Botham for number 2.
He used to play for Scunthorpe, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. Yeah. Centre half, good old Division 2 centre half. And again, people that know me, I played cricket pretty much every weekend from the age of 12 till the age of whatever it was, and he literally was. I suppose he's a bit, and I'm not causing any, I'm not disparaging both of them, but he's like the Flintoff back in the day. People love Freddie Flintoff and they love that character back in the day. Both of them was sure everybody wanted to be him. He wasn't necessarily the best bowler and he wasn't necessarily the best batsman. He was an all-rounder, but just some of the antics he got up to, and everybody wanted to be Ian Botham. And he's obviously gone on to be he's a sir, he's a member of the House of Lords or whatever he is. He's a proper sportsman back in the day. Loved the guy, and he obviously has done loads for charity and stuff as well. And he obviously works hard in punditry and stuff. But growing up, every young lad that played cricket wanted to be Ian Botham. That was who they wanted to be, and him for me was just brilliant.
And he also tweeted a picture of his cock, although they claimed afterwards it wasn't mine, which is probably more troubling.
But again, there's still, there's just some photos of him, and it's a bit like the old George Best. He's like, I spent a lot of my money on, like, is it fast women, fast cars, or whatever, and then I wasted the rest, or whatever the famous quote was. But that was a bit like both of them. You just like photos of him here, there, and everywhere, and he just like, what a lad, back in the day, what a lad, what a life he led. But he had the hearts of the nation, and he had Botham's Ashes, and you remember Botham's Ashes, and he was smashing the Aussies all over the place, and then Bob Willis cleaned up with an 8 for in the last innings and stuff. So brilliant, just growing up, I wanted to just be Ian Botham. That's who, playing cricket, that's who I wanted to be. So he got number 2 on my list, really.
No, I've got to be honest, not being a cricket fan, I don't know anything about his sporting achievements, whether he won a lot or not. I do know, like, he was a captain of Question of Sport, but mainly I know him for his charity work and his walks from, like, John O'Groats to Land's End.
John O'Groats, that's his famous way around. John O'Groats to Land's End or whatever it was. And he was in an era where England, we had very, very good players, but didn't really win loads, if you know what I mean. However, his individual sporting achievements were fantastic. I mean, at one point, he was the world's leading wicket taker. Sir Richard Hadley actually overtook him, who's a New Zealand guy. He was another all-rounder, but he overtook him. But his wickets tally, he's still the top. He's in the top 2, top 3 England wicket takers of all time. I think Jimmy Anderson's now gone past him and stuff. But, he literally is like... His numbers were, and again, it's that longevity there, and he played for a long time, so his numbers were brilliant. Scored loads of Test match runs, Test match hundreds, and some very famous ones. I say he was an all-rounder, so he would come in and bat at number 6, number 7, something middle order. But he effectively held the sort of. He was a talisman, and again, you look at some sports teams, and they'd have a talisman. Bit like a Flintoff in cricket, or a Kevin Peterson, or somebody like that, a Darren Garth, or I'm trying to think, currently like a Josh Butler, or somebody like that. If for those cricket fans out there, he was a talisman. If he played well, England would win. If he didn't have a good game, they wouldn't play. They wouldn't win. He was that type of player. But I every single young lad that played cricket in the sort of early 80s, mid 80s, they wanted to be Ian Botham. That's who they wanted to be. So he got number 2 on my list, and I wanted to be Ian Botham. That's who I wanted to be. I wanted to go out and bowl fast and hit loads of sixes and drink lots of beer, and that's who I wanted to be. Just top bloke.
We did half of that. You drank plenty.
A third of that. I drank lots of beer. Yeah, didn't hit loads of sixes, didn't take loads of wickets, but I drank loads of beer. So that's 1 out of 3 ain't bad, I suppose.
What about you, Ed? Number 2?
Well, number 2, I'm going to pick one from The other sporting team then that I support, and that's the Pittsburgh Steelers. Now we chatted when we talked about doing this episode, and the natural assumption would be that I picked Ben Roethlisberger. Now I thought about chucking him in there because he's taken us to 3 Super Bowls and he's won 2 of them, but arguably not the best quarterback that's ever played for the Steelers in terms of Terry Bradshaw. 1-4. You can't take anything away from that. So there's 2 players really that when I started watching the Steelers that really sucked me in and got me really
Can I guess? I'll give you the initials. One of them was TP.
Yeah, Troy Polamalu. Absolutely, number 43. Yeah, playing on the defense, probably not the most fashionable position to play, but this guy was ridiculous to watch. When we talk about Walter Payton and his athleticism, it was the same with Troy Polamalu. His sacks were ridiculous. He was another one who would literally, you watched him and his time and his diving over the line of scrimmage to take the quarterback down. He did it so many times that it was ridiculous. And I was amazed when I read that he'd only intercepted it in his career 32 times, which is a lot, don't get me wrong. It's a lot of interceptions, over those 11 years, that he played. But some of them were absolutely ridiculous. The diving one-handed catches, and I always remember, I forget which game it was, but he caught it one-handed and then jumped up and ran it in for a touchdown. And Mike Tomlin basically took the mickey out of him after the game, sort of saying, like he was going over and celebrating it with Tomlin. It's like, yeah, but why did you start running sideways? Because let you watch him, he'll run sideways across the field just to get there. The
thing with Troy as well, though, is that, like, in a way, because of his hair, you couldn't sort of miss him. Do you know what I mean? Like, you knew he was there, and he's got this big shock of hair and stuff coming out the back of it. He was a shout, and he was a sort of looking at the 80s Bears team. So you got Mike Singletary, Sean Gale as the defense. The Bears team in the 80s was built around their defense, and you got the safeties. So you got Singletary and Sean Gale, and Troy was like that. He literally was like, you ain't coming past me, sunshine. You can do whatever you want, then you ain't passing. It's like Gandalf, you shall not pass. You know what I mean? Literally, it's just like, you ain't coming past me here.
That's it. And the strangest thing about Polamalu is, on the field, he was ridiculously aggressive. He played fair, but he was aggressive. Yeah. Then you watched interviews with him afterwards. He was literally the most laid-back, inoffensive guy you could ever meet in your life. He was just friendly and kind. And absolute legend. And unsurprisingly, when he was nominated for the Hall of Fame in 2020, he was in first draft. No questions about it. Questions about it.
Yeah. Good. That's a good shot. And I sort of thought you might go Big Ben, but when you said you weren't going to go, I thought it has to be. Yeah. It has to be.
Again, Polamalu. He won 2 Super Bowls. He was an 8-time Pro Bowler, and he was the Defensive Player of the Year in 2010. And for me, it's one of those players where the Defensive Player of the Year, they don't always get the credit they deserve. It always tends to be the quarterback or the wide receiver.
Yeah, 100%.
That win that Player of the Year. Defensive Player of the Year, always some of them deserve to be kicked up a notch, and Polamalu is another one.
I read something, and it's a weird 24-hour theory, and it was either Ray Lewis or Lawrence Taylor, was it? Who was the last defensive MVP? Was it a Super Bowl MVP? Because effectively it's the quarterback or... It either goes to quarterback or wide receiver.
Always.
Effectively.
Yeah.
But I want to say it was Lawrence Taylor now. I might be wrong. But
I'm pretty sure when the Steelers did it, it was Roethlisberger and Hines Ward were the 2 that won it.
But yeah. So, but it always goes to, it's like Brady or Mahomes or, it's always the star guy sort of thing. And as you say, I think a lot of the time the defensive guys, they get a bit of a rough deal, don't they, at times? Because they do equally as good a job, So, but no, Troy's a shout there, dude. That's a decent shout.
Yeah, I love Polamalu. And he's one of those players now that I can happily sit and watch his highlight reel. The wife was talking to the other day, and she was talking about something. I don't even know what it was. She said, "Are you listening to me?" He's like, "No. Look at this. Look what I'm watching on my phone." She was unimpressed, but it was worthwhile.
No, but go on then, Andy. Go on, you shout out one of yours then, kidder.
So this will be my NBA player, Vince Carter.
Oh,
So,
okay. Wasn't the guy I was thinking of, but yeah.
I think for basketball, I tend to follow people rather than teams.
Yeah.
And when it was at, I always remember like the year 2000 dunk contest, and he's for me the best ever dunker that's ever lived. But then it was like the All-Star game as well. He's just a beast. I think it was that year he dunked it over like a 6'10" player, and it just jumped over him and dunked it. He's just a phenomenal player. And he only retired last year as well, maybe because of COVID, but he's playing for the Atlanta Hawks. 22 seasons he did as an NBA player. So he's like in his 40s. Like I can't even run around that much. I'm in my 30s, like, let alone like top level NBA style. But like it's just incredible player. I think for me it was always because he's sort of laid back, but like I always remember some of his buzzer beaters, like half a second left, and he's on the halfway line. Or something, they throw the ball to him, just smashes a three in from like a deep three, and it's just like just incredible. Sort of like a Thierry Henry of basketball. I always felt, he's just dead smooth and just knew what he was doing. But there was obviously comparisons for him between Kobe and Michael Jordan, and I think a lot of people are saying like he didn't train as hard and he don't make use of his talent and stuff like that. But I don't know. I wonder whether he was, I hope that he was achieving everything he could achieve, and not from laziness. But yeah, VC for me. Loved him.
I wonder whether or not, because I wondered whether you were going to go Kobe, because that's who I thought you were going to go with.
I thought he was going to go Kobe as well.
When we sort of started talking about NBA, that's who I thought you were going to go with. And then I thought, well, I pretty much knew it wasn't going to be Shaq or whatever, but I did think Kobe might be one. But again, he was one that would be like the buzzer beater, he'd be the guard, the point guard, the shoot, you get it to him. You've got like 1.5 seconds left, get the ball in play, run a screen, get the ball to Carter, Kobe, Jordan, and effectively, the responsibility that rests on those individuals. And I know it's a team sport, but you've got half a second to effectively go into your routine for shooting, and as long as that ball leaves your hand within the half a second, it can be in midair and that's fine, as long as the shot is off. But the absolute responsibility, I remember Jordan hitting one years ago, and he was in the playoffs, and it literally, I think Bulls were down by like a point or something, and you got 1.5 seconds left, and the ball gets inbound, and Jordan shoots it, and it proper is it might have been against the Indiana Pacers, I think, and Reggie Miller at the time was like, I'm as good as Jordan, all this lot, and he'd proper give it like a proper celebration, like whooping and hollering down, but the responsibility on these guys is incredible, absolutely incredible.
I have to say, I'm not a huge basketball fan, to be honest. I used to watch it years ago, like when you got Jason Kidd playing for the Nets and Tim Duncan playing for San Antonio Spurs, and I enjoyed it then. I've got into it a little bit recently, watching a little bit of the Thunder, but it's not a sport I know huge amounts about, if I'm really honest.
I went through a phase of watching like a lot. I say sort of late 80s, early 90s. I proper got into American sports. I loved the Bears, loved the Bulls. Watched a bit of baseball, a bit of ice hockey, really. But they were all the Chicago teams. The Sox and the I don't watch them. It's the Red Wings, whatever. Chicago Blackhawks. Are they ice hockey, were they, or whatever? So, but Bulls and Bears were two that obviously I watched a lot. And
have you seen that Last Dance?
Classmate. Yeah, I think we might have mentioned. I don't know if we mentioned it on a previous podcast, but that is excellent. Like very, very, very good. And just some of the not unsung guys, but some of the guys that the guys that don't get the highlight reels like Jordan and that lot, but just brilliant. And obviously, you look at Jordan, brilliant. Scottie Pippen, I think, was treated pretty poorly, really, by the Bulls. And there's a couple of other guys that you think, but it might be a whole different podcast. Dennis Rodman is he's just brilliant. He's just brilliant, that guy. And if you watch The Last Dance, it is brilliant. Rodman is class, just absolutely class.
He was going to be on the list as well, but I need his VC. I think Rodman just sort of. When I play basketball, I'm sort of like a defensive player.
Yeah.
And he sort of. I always try to have his sort of go at things, sort of thing.
Yeah.
You know, just like give everything you can for defense, and it's like he just took it that extra level. I thought like just amazing. When he kept his head in a game, he just wind everyone up when he like knock them over.
He knew exactly what he was doing, but I'll get under your skin while I'm doing it. Sort of thing. No, he's brilliant. Yeah.
With his tiger print hair.
It's literally just brilliant, yeah. And again, but half the stories about Rodman were like, what's he got up to in between the games? You know, he's got off to Vegas and had like a 3-day bender in Vegas, or whatever it was. And is he going to make?
He was almost more famous off the field, wasn't he, than on the field?
Yeah,
wasn't
no,
he?
absolutely. But I suppose you know what you're going to get, and I suppose you know the Bulls were one of those franchises that possibly could have dealt with it and did deal with it, because they were like, okay, he might be doing that off the field, and was it Phil Jackson at the time was probably pulling his hair out, sort of saying like, well, my God, what's this guy doing? But actually on the field he delivered, and on the court he delivered, and you can't argue with that, you know. So
yeah, they got what they wanted out of him, like this defensive player to get the ball to him.
Yeah,
did that.
Defensive player of the year for a number of years. You're right. What are you going to do when they shoot? If they miss, you get it. You give it to Jordan. At that end of, just do that. Sort of thing. Do you know what I mean? That's what he did. It's like fair play. You know you're rolling. You need happy days. So I'm going to go for my number one now, kid, because this guy was, and it might surprise you really, because you'll know who he is, but whether or not you think he was a particular hero, but my number one was Nick Faldo. Obviously, I played a lot of golf when I was a kid growing up and stuff. And when I was growing up, and this guy was world number one. He won 30, 40 odd tournaments sort of around the world. He'd won the British Open, which is one of the 4 golf majors. He'd won the British Open 3 times. He'd won the US Masters, the Green Jacket 3 times. I was proper gutted for him because twice he effectively came runner-up in the other 2, so the US Open, the USPGA. US Open, his best result was second, and the USPGA he tied second. So he's like effectively 1 place away from winning the sort of slam. But he the reason I liked him was he was pretty decent, but he realised he wasn't perhaps going to get to world number one. And he reinvented himself, and he went away and he completely rebuilt his swing. A guy called David Ledbetter sort of rebuilt his swing. And then he got to world number one. And he stayed at world number one, I think, for 90 odd weeks, 97 odd weeks or something. So, but growing up, he obviously was a guy who I saw a lot. And he won a major in 4 consecutive years, which not many people can do. So he won. I think he won the Open in '87. He won. Was it 8? Oh, he might have tied second in '88, and then he won one in '89, 1991, or something. So, do you know what I mean? So, in terms of consistency over that 5, 6, 7 year period, just unbelievable. And he wore some pretty minging Pringle jumpers. I remember them back in the day, but everyone thought they were dead fashionable. But you look back now, you're like, oh, 80s fashion, no, not very good. But he was the one that again, I talked about both of them when I was playing cricket. I wanted to be him. When I was playing golf, I wanted to be Nick Faldo. And literally, he was pretty ice cool on the course and nothing. He was pretty unflappable and all of that sort of thing. But growing up, strangely, if you said to me, like, who was your number one sporting hero, it's him. I genuinely loved Nick Faldo. Genuinely loved him, and I wanted to be that guy growing up.
See, out of the 3 you've named tonight, I would have put Walter Payton. I would have thought he would have been your number one.
Yeah. No, Nick. Honestly, dude, Nick Faldo was a guy who I say idolised. I wanted to be that guy. I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to play golf. I wanted to be a professional golfer, and I wanted to be exactly like Nick Faldo. that's who I like to be. You know, and I'm just looking here. So he won the Open in '87. He then won the Masters in '89. He won the Masters and the US Open in '90. He won the Open in '92. He tied second the PGA in '92. You know, so for that, as I say, for that 5, 6, 7 year period, he was literally like just the best English golfer around. And like I say, he was ranked world number 1 for over a couple of years and stuff. And he's just like, I just want to be that guy. He's obviously in the World Golf Hall of Fame and all of that sort of stuff. So yeah, he for me was number 1. It's a bit of a shock, really. Bit of, you know, golf for perhaps somebody that you wouldn't necessarily expect, but I wanted to be that guy. Simple as that.
Fair play.
Know? Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, so he's number 1 for me. There's a couple of, you know, there's other people I say notable mentions, but he was the one. He's number 1.
Nice. Came before my time, but I do know the name.
He does a lot of, obviously. He's Sir Nick Faldo now, obviously, and he lives in America now, and he does a lot for NBC or whichever, or CBS, whichever the sports channel he's with, and he obviously does a lot of sort of commentary and stuff. But and he's obviously got various golf academies open here and there and everywhere. But yeah, you know, as I say, when I was growing up, so born in '73, so by the mid '80s, you know, '85, '86, I'm sort of 13 years old or whatever. So wanting to play golf, playing a bit of golf. Who was mint on TV? It was him. So that's who I wanted to be. Yeah.
Fair play.
Yeah.
Ad, so you've got number 1?
No, well, he's not necessarily number 1. He's not necessarily number 2, and he's not necessarily number 3. But he's definitely in my top 3 sporting icons, and he's an NFL player. And I'm willing to bet you probably didn't think I was going to put him down. So, plays the NFL, wears the number 99 jersey. Who are you thinking I'm thinking? Probably the most famous 99 for the Steelers is Kiesel.
Oh, okay.
But I've not gone for Kiesel. I've gone for the only Watt brother not to play for the Steelers.
Oh, okay.
He's actually now playing for the Southern Steelers, the Cardinals, where basically once the Steelers are done with their players, we send them down there. Sorry, James Conner, I don't mean anything by that. But there's quite a few. So, yeah, he's from Wisconsin. So, guys, you'll be pleased. Pleased to know he's not a cheesehead. But ever since I saw this guy on the NFL show where I forget what it's called, where they watched the season from the training to the start, and I watched. I've always been a big fan of JJ Watt because he is for me.
Not undiscovered. What's it called? Not undiscovered.
No.
School of Hard Knocks.
Hard Knocks. Exactly.
Knocks.
That's the one.
Yeah,
that's the one. So I watched the Houston Texans featured on there, and there were some big name players in that team back then when they featured. But JJ Watt, obviously I knew him, and he's been defensive player of the year a number of times. He's in the 100 club. He's sacked 100 times quarterbacks, and this guy would turn up first thing in the morning. He was there before anybody else, and then would train. And then he was the last player off the field because he'd stay and he'd train his moves. And then once he was leaving the field, he would make time for every fan who had stayed there, and he would sign something for them, say hello. I've never seen anybody as professional as this guy. And what really sort of stuck to me is, if you remember when Hurricane Harvey, when it hit Houston and literally wiped out the city, he jumped online. And he said, I want to raise $200,000 for this, for the hurricane support. And in fact, I want to raise it so badly, I'm going to chuck in $100,000 of my own money.
Wow.
Yeah, exactly. And he stayed online for something like 36 hours. And by the time he finished, he'd raised $34 million.
Wow.
So when you're talking about a Walter Payton Man of the Year award, obviously he's won that. He's never won the Super Bowl. I don't think the Texans have ever won a Super Bowl. But when I look at somebody who personifies professionalism, I look at JJ Watt, and there was talk about uniting the Watt brothers at Pittsburgh, that he's going to come and join TJ and Derek, and I was praying for that to happen.
You'd love that, wouldn't you?
I would, and don't get me wrong. He's in his sort of 31, 32. He's at the tail end of his career now in terms of NFL. He's played for 10 years or so with Texas, and he's just gone aside with the Cardinals. But I would have loved to see him come and play because that is somebody I absolutely respect more than anybody else playing in the NFL today, and that's anybody who plays for the Steelers. Don't get me wrong. I love his brother TJ. I love Trent Jordan as well, and it was so much so that when Kim said she wanted to call our son Jacob, and then we were toying ideas for middle names. So he was going to be Jacob Thomas, and then said, "Well, my mum's dad was Joseph." It's like, yeah, Jacob Joseph. We've got to call him. Exactly, we got to call him JJ. So I joke that he's named after JJ McClure. From Smokey and from Cannonball Run. Sorry, Burt Reynolds' character, but he's not. It's for me when we talk about it. It was. I was thinking about JJ Watt in my mind when we were naming our son. Absolutely, 100%. I love JJ Watt.
That's a shout, dude. It is, and you just going through some of the things that you've done on the field and then off the field, and that's a lot of the time. That's what makes sports people sort of stand out, isn't it? Is there's a number of people that perform admirably on the pitch, but it's what they do, and that's why Sweetness was there for me as well. Is that and for Dick to say similar to what you've just said, Ad, the contributions that they make, and I know lots of sports people do, and sometimes sports people get a bit of a bad rep, but lots of sports people do lots of good things in their communities, and people open up schools, and there's Premiership footballers now that in their home countries they go and they've opened up schools and they educate kids and all that sort of but when you just talk those numbers that you've just spoken about there, dude, is like it's a bit like it's a hairs on the back of your neck. You think for that guy to make that much difference to so many people is just phenomenal, isn't it? And
I don't doubt he'll do exactly the same in Arizona.
Yeah. Fair shout, that is. Yeah, fair shout. So was your 1, 2, 3 all NFL?
No,
two NFL. Oh, Henry into NFL. Oh, okay, yeah. Go on then, Andy. Go on. Who's yours then?
He's basically. I was going to say Arnold Schwarzenegger. I was going to build him up then. I thought, I'm saying
sportsman. Oh, okay, yeah, okay, Mr. Universe. Okay, yeah.
Mr. Universe or whatever it is and all that. I think he started at a time when it wasn't popular, and so all the healthy eating and all that stuff, and how to train and all that, he sort of helped kickstart, especially the film. Was it? Oh, I forgot what it's called now. Iron. Summer Iron. I've forgotten it. Pumping Iron. There we go.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And it's sort of just propelled bodybuilding, and obviously that's defined his film career as well. But when he was married to his first, his missus, he he implemented fitness tests in schools and stuff across America. And he's just chasing for it to be a standard thing for everyone to be healthy to a degree.
Yeah.
And I think it's just, for me, it's, I don't know, he's growing up for all his films from a young kid as well, so that's how I know him. And then you look back at all his training stuff, it's wow, it's an incredible life he's had, from being in Austria to the army to training in Germany to moving to America to train and
becoming a governor.
Yeah, governor of California.
Governor, yeah, that ain't a bad deal if you can get it. You know what I mean?
I think he's just he's just a. I mean, you can take his personal misdemeanors as you will, illegitimate kids and all that. But other than that, he's just a general all round.
Hey, if our prime minister can do that, we can't criticise him.
And to be fair, dude, we've spoken a lot about the demons and the various things that misdemeanors that lots of the people that we've mentioned tonight have made and stuff. So, he's not alone in that category, is he? So, it doesn't. It shocked me that you put him as a sportsman, but it doesn't shock me that you've spoken about him. I'll be honest.
Yeah, I mean, because I know I look like a highly tuned athlete. But no, I do. I've always been into weightlifting and stuff like that, and like he's done books on it, he's done films, and just interesting. I think we should do it over here where it's sport. You should only be able to leave school if you've passed certain fitness tests. To be honest, obviously there's going to be some variance in that.
I'd still be there now.
It's like 12 plus. You can't advance unless you pass your 12 plus. You can't leave school until you pass your bleep test or whatever. It's like, I'm chugging away like this. Bloody hell!
Put me can down.
Oh no, brilliant! Yeah, I mean, and look, again, he's somebody that effectively has reinvented himself. Obviously, he's a sportsman. He was a performer. He was a Mr. Universe. He then went into films. He's then reinvented himself. We've just mentioned governor of California or whatever. He went to politics and all that. So, and he will have done a vast amount of good in his local communities, wherever, back in his hometown, back in America, in America and stuff. So, fair play, dude. Yeah, it's a fair shout, that is.
Yeah, I think one anecdote that I probably will like to share is when he was filming Predator with Jesse Ventura.
Yeah,
he was telling the wardrobe people that his arms were slightly smaller than they were by like 2 inches or something like that. He was like, oh yeah, they're like 15 inches or something like that, or 18. And then he had a bet with Jesse on who's got the bigger arms. So like this went on for a couple of months. Like the dressing people were telling Jesse that, oh yeah, his arms are only this big, blah 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 blah. And right at the end of it, like the filming or something like that, he goes, right, let's have a measure off then and see who's bigger. And like Arnie was like 5 inches bigger, or something, like 25-inch guns or something like that. And Jesse was like, yeah, this spy's done it. I think you have buying like cigars and wine or whiskey or something like that. Yeah,
brilliant.
Just classic, though. Just imagine telling someone, I've got tiny arms.
he was another one, though, Jesse the Body Ventura. He was a governor somewhere as well, wasn't he?
Yeah. Again, was he a wrestler, a film actor, and then a governor or something, or wherever he was? Yeah. I don't know where he was governor. So
I want to say Minnesota, but I don't think it was, and I'm going to shy away from making that statement given the problems that they're having there. But I'm sure it was somewhere up north.
Yeah, I can't. I don't. Andy's googling it now, so he'll let us know.
Minnesota.
Oh, dude, knowledge that is.
Can't fault it, dude.
Look at that, hey.
That's it. Yeah. Hey, listen, I'd fail my 12 plus physicals, but I'd be there on the general knowledge.
Absolutely, the absolutely irrelevant stuff that you really don't need to know. I'm there.
I'll eat this peanut butter and jelly instead.
Oh, come on. Awful.
That's below the belt. That is funny, but below the belt.
We are at the hour mark. Do we want to discuss the that European League thing, or do we don't know?
I think it's worth a mention, is it not?
Yeah, I'm glad it's sort of fallen by the wayside. Really, I wasn't a massive fan, and it's hard because my club weren't involved in it, and had they have been, would it have been like ooh sort of thing? But I still think I'd have been like, you know what, nah, not for me.
Well, the original premise was just an extra match a week of this European Super League, was it? So it was going to have like instead of doing the Champions League, they were going to do this thing every week.
But it was when the Champions League fixtures came around, those clubs wouldn't go into Champions League fixtures. They would play their own sort of match in this Super League, wasn't it? So, instead of the Champions League, group stages, these clubs would just split into 3 groups of 4 or whatever, and they would just play each other. And then they would have like a top 2 or top whatever it was playing off sort of thing. So I'm not
a bit like the Champions League. That's just had its format changed as well.
But in theory, just like the Champions League. I'm just looking at Man City have confirmed that they've formally enacted the procedure to withdraw from the European Super League. So Man City are out. I think Chelsea said they were out earlier. So It looks like it possibly isn't. Now, whether or not it ever was it just a power play from the clubs or from the... I think more will come out of this because for them to not back down so quickly, but it only broke on... was it Sunday or whatever? Sunday night? And then for them to have effectively backed down within, 48 hours? Okay, yeah, fans have a bit of an influence, but really? Like, when you're talking about the Glazers and Abramovich and Sheikh Mansour and all these people own the Henry family or whatever, these guys are solid bloody multi-billionaire negotiators. You're not telling me that Abramovich is bothered about what the Chelsea fans think. He'll do what he wants. Do you know what I mean? So I think there might be something that, I don't know. I think there's more to come for this. I think there's stuff that, and I know Ed Woodward, is he vice chairman of United or whatever? I know he's resigned tonight and stuff, but I'm gonna not reserve judgment on it because I'm glad it's not going to go ahead. But
ditto. Listen, I'm an Arsenal fan, and I was disgusted to see our name attached to that. First of all, the 6 biggest clubs. Okay, maybe we are financially, but are we one of the 6 biggest clubs? No, we're not. We've been a poor side over the last couple of years. We're not one of those biggest clubs. And I was watching an interview with Ian Wright, one of the guys who didn't make me top 3, sort of saying, hang on a minute, he played Inter Milan twice in his career, and those are games that he lauded and absolutely remembered. These shouldn't be the mundane fixtures. These shouldn't be something that's played week in, week out. It's just ridiculous. Those are the games you remember.
But was it 3 years ago, 4 years ago, whenever it was, Leicester won the Premier League. So if the Super League goes ahead, Leicester win the Premier League. They don't get the opportunity to play Barcelona, Real Madrid, Inter Milan, AC Milan. They don't get that opportunity. Yeah, they might go into the Champions League, but no disrespect to any of the teams, my team included, but in the Champions League, you might have Everton, Leicester, West Ham and Wolves or whatever as the next best 4 clubs or whatever going through from England. And then in Italy, you might have Parma and Napoli and whoever, Roma, So, yes, you're still going to Champions League, but it won't have Barcelona, Real Madrid, Chelsea, Man United, Man City. You won't have those teams in there. So what they're basically saying is that, okay, these 12 clubs will run our own little league. You can't get relegated. No other team can become involved. And what we'll do is we'll just rip off the fans and rip off the TV and make money.
If I'll state this now, if Arsenal end up in that league, I'm done supporting Arsenal. I won't follow Arsenal in that league.
Dude, loads of people have said that about their various clubs and stuff, haven't they? And I know they were saying, was it Florentino Perez was the Real Madrid president? He was, we've struggled during these COVID times and we've lost a bit of money and we're not making any profit. Well, don't pay Gareth Bale £400,000 a week then. Do you know what I mean? That's why you're properly losing money. And
it's only the Spanish teams in big debt, though, isn't it? Like,
Real Madrid and Barcelona, they're knackered, aren't they? But you look at it, you think, don't pay these players massive wages, and you're on about you losing money. What about likes of Bury? Have they gone out of bloody existence? And you look at these League One and League Two clubs that are absolutely just dying on the and look, like him or loathe him, Gary Neville's been brilliant over the last couple of days. You follow him on social media and the interviews he's done on and the punditry he did on Sky and stuff. He's been phenomenal. I know he's a Man United United player, Man United fan, but what he had to say about United and Liverpool was spot on, and I mean spot on. And I genuinely applaud him for, and whether or not it's him or others like him. I mean, I know James Milner came out last night and said he didn't want to see it, and obviously Klopp come out and said he didn't really want to see it, and pretty much Guardiola's come out and said he didn't want it either. So obviously all the people that are involved in the game, they've pretty much said they don't want it. So I'm just glad it's not going to happen now, or it looks like it is. I can't think they're going to substitute 2 in. I mean, I don't know who the next two are. If you look at Man City, you've said they're going to pull out. Chelsea pulled out. Who are the next two? So West Ham and Leicester.
Crystal Palace.
You get Palace and Burnley. No disrespect to any
attention?
Palace or Burnley fans out there, but
you think it was just for attention? Because you think the money that these teams generate is obviously like the Premier League, United, Liverpool, Man City. They generate a lot of money for the league.
Yeah.
Do you think it was just like saying, "Oh, we want more money"? Bear in mind, the UK's the Premier League makes more money than any other league in the world, innit? Not from shirt sales, but I mean like Premier League or TV rights and all that.
TV rights. I know the government were talking about, was it some sort of tax on these clubs that went into the Super League, but the tax would be equivalent of all of the TV money that they would earn from the Super League type thing. So, it's. I just think fundamentally it's wrong, and it goes against the whole principle of the game of football in terms of if you do really well, you can get to that higher level, and the whole pyramid structure of the game has gone if the Super League goes ahead. Effectively, it's like we're just going to have our own. It's our ball, and we're going to play with it, and nobody else can join us.
It would be based on financial success, not success on the field, and that for me, not right. Not right.
Not right. I'm glad it looks like it's sort of collapsing. Whether or not it was all just a power play to say, look at what we can do, we can wield this power, give us more money, I don't know. But I'm glad it looks like it's sort of, basically Man City and Chelsea, I think, have pulled out as of tonight. So,
well, this episode will drop in about 2 weeks' time, so the proof will be in the pudding by then.
Yeah, and I hope we don't have to talk about it again.
I was going to say that it's interesting that the German teams never signed up for it.
No,
and these are teams that charge people like £300 for a season ticket and 30 quid tickets, whereas United and all that, like you're looking at thousands.
Just greed, isn't it?
Yeah, and I think the Bundesliga probably run their clubs better, and I think for me a lot of it's the agents' greed as well. I don't know if you looked at the Haaland deal, but just doing the rounds at the minute of like you got to buy Haaland for 120 million and then give the Minola or whatever he's called. Raiola, give him like 20 million and then give his dad 20 million. It's like, no, you pay for the player, that's it. Where that money goes, I don't care.
Yeah, no, absolutely. The Bundesliga is a decent model in terms of the money that they charge fans, and I'm led to believe was it PSG that also said that they were approached and they said no. So fair play to them as well. So I think it was PSG, I think Bayern Munich, and was it Leipzig or Dortmund? There was another Bundesliga club in there, but I think basically the German clubs and the French clubs said, "Nah, you're all right." So fair play to them. But yeah, let's hope this is the last we sort of talk about it, and it's never going to happen. So
PSG was hoping for that Champions League title if no one else is in it.
well, at one point though, they did turn around and say that even though you're at the semi-final stage or whatever, that they could all be kicked out. So, and whether that's influenced, so was it City and Chelsea, whoever they're in the semi-finals, whether that's influenced them to think, actually, you know what, we really want the Champions League. I don't know. It's interesting. Everybody's talking about it, politicians and football fans and this, that, government and stuff. But let's hope it sort of dies a death in the nicest sort of way. So,
well, on that note, then we're well over the hour mark, so we'll probably call it a day for now.
Indeed.
Got any goodbyes? Anything? Go around the table.
Just really enjoyed it. As I say, I love talking about sport. I love talking about the impact sport has on us individually and collectively and stuff. So I look forward to the next one, whatever that may be. Really enjoyed it. Yeah.
And I just want to give a quick quote out there from David Rocastle, and it sums up this approach to the European Super League as well. It's just something to bear in mind for everybody. Remember who you are, and what you represent.
Could also be a Morrissey quote.
Could be, but it isn't.
And there you go. I think for me, I'll quote another great, hasta la vista, baby.